At the moment in the planet, I believe we are really sowing the branch in which we are sitting, and we're gonna have to. There's gonna have to be a quantum jump into something else.
What we've done to the environment and to this beautiful, small and green and beautiful planet of ours, what are we doing to it? It demands that we find another state of consciousness.
If you look around the world today, you see division, terrorism, war, racism, politics. Everywhere it looks absolutely impossible. And yet I think everybody feels within themselves it does not have to be like that.
There should be somewhere upon earth that no nation could claim as its sole property, a place where all human beings of goodwill, sincere in their aspiration, would live freely as citizens of the world, obeying one simple authority, that of supreme truth.
There are many people who would like to experience a different way of living and a better future, which everybody dreams of somehow, not knowing where and how to go about it. Auroville provides that possibilities.
Auroville is an international township where already we have 40 nationalities. And one of the important aims of Auroville is to practice human unity.
If we could achieve unity here, what a fantastic example it will be to the outside world.
For me, Auroville is a laboratory. It is the R&D, the research and development department of this spaceship Earth.
A place above religion, a place above nation, a place above color, creed, caste.
We are not a new age shopping mall here. Invited are all men of goodwill who aspire to a higher and truer life.
There are numerous theories and ideas about what it will take to make the world a better place. More freedom, economic and social reforms, cleaner cars, canvas shopping bags, spiritual ideals, new technologies. Auroville, a 44-year-old experimental city, is an attempt to prove true the simple theory that living our lives from a perspective above our differences, in conscious awareness of our interconnection with all others, is the key to actualizing a more life-affirming environment on our planet. Auroville is the realization of the dream of Mother Mira Alfaza and Sri Aurobindo that a city be established on Earth where individuals of great diversity would live in pursuit of human unity. Sri Aurobindo was one of the first revolutionaries in India, a predecessor to Gandhi. In May 1908, he was arrested for conspiracy and held by the British for 1 full year. He spent his time in prison in the practice of yoga, where he experienced the possibilities of a divine life on Earth. After his release, he fled to Pondicherry in southern India. It was during this time in Pondicherry that Sri Aurobindo developed and refined the process for effecting the inner transformation he had experienced in prison. A process he called integral yoga, a practice meant to transform rather than transcend life.
That was one of the downfalls of the traditional yoga, that they neglected the material and the here and now. It was always escaping into some blue yonder, into the Himalaya cave.
But in Sri Aurobindo's ashram, right from the beginning, Aurobindo wanted to take up every field of activity. It means you have business and you have industry and you have farming and everything else they could do in Aurobindo ashram. It is life itself. We want to embrace life and change life, create a new society.
A divine life upon earth, the ideal that has been placed before us, can only come about by a spiritual change in our whole being, and a radical and fundamental change, an evolution or revolution of our nature. Sri Aurobindo.
He's been described as a philosopher, as a sage. He said, I am not a philosopher, I was a politician and a poet. And what people consider my philosophy is just a rational expression of my own experiences.
At the same time, Mira Alfaza, a young French woman, was discovering similar teachings. As a member of a French delegation to Pondicherry in 1914, the mother, as Mira Alfaza would come to be called, met Sri Aurobindo and later returned to live permanently at the ashram. Together, they spent their lives practicing and teaching a life meant to realize divine consciousness on earth.
I'm hesitant to put them into the category of religious teachers. That's why I'm putting them in a context of a vastness, because if you haven't gone beyond it, you would look up to them in a religious sense. But it's your limitation rather than what they are saying. What Sri Aurobindo and Mother are saying is become. That's the best service you can do. And here's a pathway of becoming.
After the death of Sri Aurobindo in 1950, Mother Mira took up the work of their dream of a place on earth where a gathering of people of great diversity could live as one united family, a city she would name Auroville. As money became available, she bought up strips of land around a lone banyan tree on a barren plateau near Pondicherry.
And so she decided a little later that this banyan tree here, which was the only tree in the area, would be the geographical center of the town. And inauguration of the township took place around the urn behind me in 1968.
On February 28, 1968, 5,000 people came to celebrate the inauguration of Auroville. As part of the celebration, one man and one woman from 120 nations brought samples of their native soil and combined them in the urn at the center of the amphitheater. Over the loudspeaker, the mother presented the charter.
Auroville belongs to nobody in particular. Auroville belongs to humanity as a whole. But to live in Auroville, one must be the willing servitor of the divine consciousness. Auroville will be the place of an unending education, of constant progress, and a youth that never ages. Auroville wants to be the bridge between the past and the future, taking advantage of all discoveries from without and from within. Auroville will boldly spring towards future realizations. Auroville will be a site of material and spiritual researchers for a living embodiment of an actual human unity.
There is no guru here, no living person to whom one can go and ask questions, and it's just, we have just the charter, and that's our guide.
The charter is not something that you can derive rules from. It's the spirit of the experiment, and it's all-encompassing, the spirit.
And then people came. People started helping to prepare the road for the foundation. You know, everything very new and fresh, very pioneering. Everything was sort of filled with that sense of we are part of the unknown. We are part of, and that's what Mother actually calls, I invite you to the great adventure. Come what may, embark.
I invite you to this great adventure, and in this adventure, you are not to repeat spiritually what has been done before us, because our adventure begins beyond that stage. We are for a new creation, entirely new, carrying in it all the unforeseen, all the risks, all hazards, a true adventure. Mother Mira Alfassa.
All the land which Auroville was starting to buy was very harsh, very survival level, very basic. There was nothing was growing here, red desert. We had built a small hut, and it was always very tough, but full of that sense of we are part of a big adventure.
So the first work that Auroville had to do was the greening of the environment, the saving of the water table, the converting of this dry, barren, unfit for human habitation plateau into an oasis of beauty.
In the summer there would be sandstorms, and as there were no trees, nothing. And it was actually very difficult to grow food. So they slowly went into tree planting, and through trial and error they found species that would grow in this climate, that didn't need much water, that would give shade. And it was important to create a proper environment.
So I remember this land. It was terrible, there wasn't a tree on it, where all these trees were planted by a friend of mine named Yao.
And then the mother said, I would like you to build a proper house to show to the world that we are here for good. It served as a central point. It was like town hall. And then more people moved around there. And then we met on a Friday evening in the community, and they said, now what name shall we give? This house can be called Orason's home, but what is the name of the community? There was a photo exhibition of mothers doing these mudras out from the Bharatanatyam. And I was very impressed with one called Certitude. And I said, well, I had an intuition, I think it should be called Certitude. And Piero was there. And he said, not connecting, he said, no. I have a much better name. It is called Assurance. And I said, but why? And then he said, I went to a photo exhibition, and there was a particular mudra which struck me. And I said, that is the name for this community. And I looked at the French translation. He had the same photo, the same mudra, and he picked the French title and I picked the English title, totally independent. So somehow that was like, that is for me the feeling that not only this house, but this, a sense of we are here for good, you know.
In those days, Mother was still personally selecting all the applicants for Auroville. And if one thought one wanted to be here, there was an application form to be filled in, and one had to send a photograph, and she would have a look mainly at the photograph. I don't think she really looked at what was written on the form, and then she would decide. And I was taken to present my form to Roger Auger. And looking at the form, he saw that I had, in my brief career, done some work with children. And he jumped on that. He said, Mother is pressing us to start a school in Auroville. She says it's essential. You can do that, he said. So from day one, I was involved in the education scene.
There weren't all these facilities that we have now. So life was very simple. Hardly anybody had a motorcycle, so we were all on bicycle or horse. I grew up with ponies, then I would ride to school on the pony. So we had a lot of contact with nature.
Mother had one French architect, our chief architect, Mr. Roger Auger. Yes, she appointed him as the chief architect for this place.
Roger Auger had a huge office in Paris as architect. And one time he came to Pandy and met the mother. And when the mother met him and heard that he is architect in Paris, she said, I have a town to build, international town in Auroville to build. Would you like to do? And he said yes. And it was the beginning.
Mother gave in the beginning a sketch to Roger, and this plan, which we mention as Galaxy Plan, it came into being in 1968 at the time of inauguration of Auroville. This town plan is proposed for a population of 50,000 people. It is fairly small, but at the same time relatively dense, but which is also one element of experiment here. How? Because land is limited. Yes. The resources are limited, right from land, water, energy, everything is a part of that. How in 5 square kilometer, approximately a population of 50,000 can live together in very healthy, happy, inspiring quality of life. Idea is not to compromise on that. And it has all the aspects like right from organic agriculture, renewable energy, water management, less impactful building material. This Galaxy Plan essentially has 4 zones: residential, cultural, industrial, which can also be called economical, and international zone. And in the center is the peace area. What we call peace area is Matre Mandir complex, Matre Mandir itself, amphitheater, banyan tree, which is the geographical center of township, Matre Mandir gardens surrounded by the lake. So this is the central peace area.
From the beginning in '65, when the mother started speaking about Auroville, she said at the center of her town there will be a park of unity, and in this park there will be something she at first called the pavilion of truth, or the pavilion of love, or the pavilion of the universal mother. And eventually she named it Matri Mandir, which she translated as the mother's shrine.
The Matri Mandir is the soul of Auroville. Let the Matri Mandir be the living symbol of Auroville's aspiration for the divine.
I think that every town which has, a church, a cathedral, a temple, a mosque, or has a soul, if the people are very strongly connected to it. You see, one of the messages that the mother gave about Matri Mandir, it is that it represents Auroville's aspiration for the divine. And she said, probably because of this, that it is a cohesive force and the central force of Auroville. On February 71, there was a beginning of the excavation. And my friend Alain led 400 locals who dug this hole by hand. So it was quite an amazing thing. And on 21st February 1972, the real beginning of the construction, the first concreting took place. And it has been going on ever since. Now it is, except for very minor details, the construction of Matri Mandir itself is complete. Once mother was asked, why do we build Matri Mandir? And she said something like that it is to show to people that it is not by escaping matter that we'll find the divine. And I think this is also what the mother wanted to illustrate with Matri Mandir, to have a glorious structure which is not about poverty, it's not also about throwing money down the drain, but it is about glorifying matter, saying it is beautiful and it has to be made beautiful. So what the architect has tried to express with Matri Mandir is precisely that. It is the emergence of this new consciousness, of this new creation, which comes out from the aspiration of matter, from the aspiration of the earth, and breaks up the crust of the earth. And what appears is a radiating supramental sun, which illumines the earth with this new consciousness. And I think one of the things she was keen about when she started Matri Mandir is to find a project where we could all unite together and build it. Something that unites us, because we are so totally different, every one of us. So the only thing that truly unites us is a common aspiration for a higher consciousness.
Auroville is an aspiration towards that oneness which we have to find within ourselves. And in the measure in which we find that within ourselves, perhaps we can effectively, actually manifest it in unity, in our forms of governance, in our economic forms, in our educational forms, in the way we build the city.
For in this ideal place, money would be no more the sovereign lord. Individual merit will have a greater importance than the value due to material wealth and social position. Money is not meant to make money. Money is meant to manifest the new creation.
For the mother, money was an energy for the enrichment of life, of human life, of the earth life itself. In fact, she has once she said, "I challenge the financial people. They have ruined the earth, and with even much less than what they are wasting now, we could make of the earth a very beautiful and harmonious place."
I think we have to learn that. We have killed too many people and community in the process of making some more money. And economy has reached to a place where humanity is serving economy. Economy is not serving humanity. Somewhere we have missed the bus.
If you ask an economist, is it possible to have an economy without money? He said, no, it's not possible. I mean, without circulation of money. Money is necessary to calculate the scale of desirability of goods and services and work. Our paradigm is totally different. Our paradigm is the act of giving. So we give our work and we are given what we need. It's very simple. Now, if you give your work and you are happy to give it, you don't need money to evaluate the quality of your giving. It's not necessary. And still, we can be productive, creative, innovative. And it's interesting because what happens is that people discover that they feel better. And then the place where they go in order to buy the potatoes and carrots and milk and rice becomes another kind of place. Because it's not a shopping place. So it's a meeting place, like the marketplace, in the ancient times. And when they go there, they have an experience which is different because there is a meaning involved. In fact, we don't know the price of the things we buy. It's not written, So the idea is that we take what we need, and that's it.
People keep their own money to some degree. But the sense of mine, that sense of, I'm the owner, that should go. And officially you provide in the beginning for yourself, and then if possible you give some money towards building a facility, or if there is already a facility which might be available, somebody might have left, you move in, but you give your contribution so that it becomes a revolving fund for other facilities to be built. But there is no claim of ownership.
So what is the difference between a want and a need? Genuine need. Well, we don't know. We are on the process of discovering all these things, but we can live with very much less than we think. And when we don't have all these useless things, we don't miss them. That's the big discovery. We don't need them. So we have to learn to produce more meaning and less objects, and to prove how it's possible to live like this. A full life, an abundant life. In the world, you are not free to choose that. You have to work. You have to pay your rent, you have to pay your taxes, you have to pay so much that you cannot say, oh, I'm going to make the experiment, unless you go to a monastery, of course. If you are obliged to earn your life just to have a status and survive, then education cannot happen. True education. You have to sacrifice yourself in order to find a job. Yeah? you have to become employable. So you have to sacrifice your own process of discovery and self-perfection in order to fit in the system, the big machine which maintains you.
How can education help young people to grow up free if all the parents and all the teachers are slaves of the existing situation?
Modern education is a recent industrial age invention, but more and more it's become, it's reduced to an absurd limit. It's your certification that decides whether you are educated or not.
Now, that means we cannot change economy without changing education. It's only if we consider that the aim of life is to provide to each one the means to discover what they want to be, they choose to be. And this is the aim of life and this is the aim of society. Then we can reorganize the economy around that.
In this place, children will be able to grow and develop integrally without losing contact with their soul. Education would be given not with a view to passing examinations and getting certificates and posts, but for enriching the existing faculties and bringing forth new ones.
Mother gave us the charter that here is a township which will believe in unending education, that is from womb to tomb.
In the first year, a lot of the teachers told us this, and it always stayed with me in the first year here, is that we're not trying to make you fit into the society. We're trying to make you grow so that you can create your own society.
We recognize to start with that there is no one approach. We want the individual flowering to take place. We want the personality to develop in its own unique pattern and manner.
I think we're given that freedom here, and it's more individualized, no? It's about each person's development rather than fitting into a society. And I think that way the teachers in this school are very open to that also. They adjust to what your needs are rather than impose on you what they think will make you develop best.
Our education is oriented towards awakening faculties, towards developing all the powers that sleep in the human being. There are domains of knowledge beyond the mind. There is an intelligence that is sensory. There is an intelligence that is auditory. There is an intelligence that is bodily. A dancer has a consciousness in her feet or his feet that a normal person would not have. Now, I think young people should experience that intelligence. So an education that is integral would address all these levels of being. We don't present ideologies. We present perspectives, but no overriding perspective. In that sense, the mind is capable of being stimulated to find its own.
I don't go to school to secure my future in the sense that that I'll get a job later. I go to school because it gives me something, but the rest, all of my life is a school.
I mean, in France, I just did mathematics and physics and didn't complete completely my studies. And then basically all what I know about environment, I learned it here. First, I learned here through working with professionals here on that field. I work in forestry, I work in soil and water conservation. So then I started to want to learn more about agriculture. And from certain Aurovillians which have been dedicating their life to this field, I started to learn from them. They told me, read that, read that, read that. So educating myself, starting to pick up projects. So learning really on the ground and educating myself.
The moment you think, oh, I've achieved my educational aims and I'm there, well, you stop progressing. You're no longer part of Auroville. Unending education, constant progress gives birth to a youth that never ages. Whether you're 86 years old, whether you're 90 years old or you're 9 years old, there is always room for progress, for growth, for learning. That's the spirit of Auroville. So Auroville's spirit is embodied in its educational endeavor. Auroville is meant to be a learning society. Auroville is a kind of a university. And everybody who's part of Auroville is a student of that university.
And if we are here to learn, then work is part of the learning process. So you never go out of school, in fact.
Work would not be there as the means of gaining one's livelihood. It would be the means whereby to express oneself, develop one's capacities and possibilities, while doing at the same time service to the whole group, which on its side would provide for each one's subsistence and for the field of his work.
Our paradigm is different because we don't work in order to consume. We work because work is a field of progress. This is where you become. It's by giving your energy to something higher than yourself. And that's the aim of human life.
It's success, career, money. Those are the industrial age has given that utilitarian aims as the primary purpose and meaning of being on earth.
We are not only just to earn our livelihood or to make some career or to do something. There is a deeper meaning, there is a higher meaning. We need to discover that, we need to work towards that.
I can't say that I understood much of what was being asked here when I first came, but I knew that it was a place where I could work for the world, even if I were only milking cows, which was what I did when I started. And I had the sense that by working for Auroville, I could work for the whole world. That sense I had. So I felt that I wanted to go out on behalf of Auroville and meet with the village communities and set up a neighborly relation. We have now 4 villages where there are little centers in which Aurovillians are involved also, doing cultural or educational or outreach work. Auroville employs somewhere around 5,000 people. In the nearby villages, almost every house will have at least 1, if not 2 or 3 people working in Auroville. That is getting steady, regular employment.
I wanted to create a place where young people could come to Auroville and feel connected. Not connecting to spirituality for the sake of spirituality, but connecting to spirituality through work. Upasana provides the possibilities for all this dreamer to come and experience that life. We call it R&D, research and development for designers. They could come with the idea and they can just create what they dream of. So we have a graphic section, we have a place or table for fashion designer, jewelry designer. We have created a lot of ideas, so now we are getting into project design, system design, communication design, which is beautiful. And we created our own campus. So this is architect designer in-house who did this.
We thought it was important to put into one basket, under one umbrella, all the different small projects that were happening. And they related to alternative energy. There was a wind pump, biogas plants, and a couple of other things.
One project that brought me back to India was actually a biodiesel project. It was an renewable energy option for very remote tribal villages. It's an initiative that can actually transform the grind in life in many of these forest-dwelling communities and, improve their quality of living without changing, without having to consume resources beyond certain means.
The seed bank, basically, here we grow about 100 varieties of vegetables. of the species who can grow in that climate, and we distribute them for free in India to network of organic farmers, NGOs, government institutions. So we do a lot of selection work with a variety of tomato, capsicum, corn, etc. And we look at what are the more yielding and the more resistant to drought or to certain diseases. My organization is at a level where we consult to the government and we train them in what we've learned in 8-9 years.
The scope of our work is quite wide. So now we have a team of about 10 Aurovillians, Indian, Russian, Italian, French. We work with 70 people from the neighboring villages. We have a good team. A team has developed a certain number of activities: printing press, silk screen printing unit. We have started also a small publishing house. And finally, 10 years ago, we decided to revive the Auroville handmade paper factory. Whatever work we do, we would like it to express truth. We try to manifest this beauty, this harmony, this truthfulness at all levels. Not only in what we do, but how we do it.
When I was in France and I had to earn my living, I found that very heavy. It was really a burden. I was not happy. So when I could come to Auroville and just forget about earning my living and work for the joy of discovering new activities and to progress and to interact with others, it was a liberation.
The reward is, I think, what all human beings in their heart of hearts are looking for. It's a meaningful life, a sense that your life is dedicated to a purpose that you wholly identify with, and that all the circumstances, all the challenges that come up only contribute to your journey towards that goal that you have glimpsed.
We want an organization that is the expression of higher consciousness, where people organize themselves spontaneously, without fixed rules and laws, without an army or police.
I think the greatest thing about Auroville is a non-hierarchical system where everybody has a say in the decision making. The most difficult and challenging thing of Auroville, that it's a non-hierarchical system and everybody has a say in making the decision.
The day-to-day functioning of Auroville is very much in the hands of the Aurovillians. And when we have a meeting, affecting everybody, there is a residents' assembly meeting called. And everybody's invited to come and make their contribution. It's, again, a very open procedure. We try to come to a consensus. It doesn't always happen. It's, again, one of the difficulties we face.
Any decision making has to go through this whole process, which makes it slow, which makes it difficult, which brings in questions from people who are not even probably aware of it, and then they have to be in the same boat. But I do see that as a positive thing, because whatever decision is taken is then becomes a very strong, and everybody can own it. And yes, there is a weight to it, because it's not coming from top. It's really had churned and cooked and made itself something probably even completely different from where it started.
Within Auroville itself, we try as much as possible not to make any rigid rules, regulations, laws, if you like to call them as such. Because Auroville has to be an immensely free society, free to make mistakes as well as to come to solutions. And I think laws and regulations They come out of the mind, and we're trying to go a little bit beyond the mind.
It's a place which is free from state control. So seekers here can work freely. You've got a number of seekers in the world who cannot actually apply their discoveries because of too many rules and regulations. You can't do this, you can't do that. So Auroville provides that freedom.
Whatever happens in the outside world, you can expect to happen here. The prime difference is what you do about it. Yes, we have our clashes and our differences, but whereas in the outside world, you call the police, you go to your lawyer, you get in a fight, none of this applies here. We have to find ways to work out things together, and generally this is the way it happens.
Auroville has an advantage because we have a vision.
Yes.
It is this vision, which was given by the mother, which was rather the starting point of Auroville. There should be a place. And what is described in the dream is essentially the very guiding parameter, principle, or the fundamental aspect of a society to be. Taking clue from there and taking further clue from the Charter of Auroville to come up with planning guidelines which facilitate a creation of a society like that, it is an exercise which I doubt has been attempted in the human history. Auroville's role is also somewhere very strongly to be a model, right from education, which is the basis and central aspect of Auroville's theme, economy, self-governance, conflict resolution, management of resources, town planning, architecture, everything which touches the life. As Mother talked about the spiritual as well as material research. So the nature of challenge is in that line, how Auroville is able to produce via its own evolution, its own experiences and experiment, a model of how a humanity can live together, utilize the spaces, material resources, and have the self-governance. So it is a combination of all these aspects.
I would like people to feel that coming to Auroville is not coming to an easy life. It means coming to a gigantic effort for progress.
The difficulties are to be expected. You see, sometimes people look at Auroville and think that we're all incredible, beautiful beings meditating all day, we have no problems. Nonsense.
You sometimes wake up in the early mornings and say, my God, everything is going wrong. What are we doing? It's only... Even Mother in the agenda talks about that. But on what are you measuring progress? I mean, that is a real thing. Sometimes having great progress on the external might actually be a handicap. We are wonderful, our trees, we are now well organized, we have got outreach program, visitor program, guest houses, taxi services. Might attract people who are nothing to do with that core question of Auroville. So your success becomes your peril.
I would love actually the Aurovillian to awaken a bit from the tropical paradise and to take back a bit the action that the pioneer had. Now it's definitely become a nice place to live. But we didn't come for that at the beginning, we came to make a difference.
I think there's one sort of major difficulty is that the two population groups are at very different stages in their development. But just if we look at it from a purely socioeconomic point of view, the villagers are in poverty. Their chief energy, their chief ambition is to get regular food, regular job, education for their kids, a nice house, and all those things that are sort of make a basis for developing more in consciousness or in culture or whatever. Whereas the Aurovillians, coming from cities in India or from the West, have that. They grew up with that, most of them, with a very secure material base, even quite a secure financial base, and their wish is to go beyond that to something else. So you have the villagers aspiring for what the Aurovillians are leaving behind.
While unity is relatively easy to achieve, amongst the people who come from similar backgrounds, who have the same sort of viewpoints. The challenge of Auroville is unity in diversity.
But think of it, they come from social, moral, ethical, educational, religious, rational backgrounds, which tend to often be contrary. So what can hold them together?
Everybody has their own experience of Auroville and their own ideas of how Auroville should be, and different interpretations of what Mother said or what Mother's vision was. And that creates a lot of conflict.
Our differences are there and they have a good reason, and sometimes they clash. Sometimes most of our common understanding of human unity is put all the difference together and make them behave nicely to each other. It's also good, it's good. It's a bit flat, but that's okay.
For many, many years, I've been quite frustrated. I could not see these ideals being manifested. I could see them in individuals, but not in our collective life. We are supposed to develop an economy without circulation of money. We are still very far from it. We are supposed to develop an education which is not meant to get diplomas, but to develop integrally all the parts of the being. We are still very far from it. We are supposed to have a society where everybody would be taken care of, would have his or her needs provided by the community in exchange of his or her work. We are still very far from it. And for a long, long time, it made me mad, actually. It made me mad because I felt that the problem was with the others. I felt I knew how to do it. I felt I had a perfect understanding how things should happen. And I was very sincere. And the more I tried to have these ideals manifested, the more mad I became. When you want the truth too hard, you have a tendency to be exclusive. You have a tendency to judge others, to condemn others. And that has been my problem for a long time.
If we were all the same, we wouldn't have any challenges, and I think that's where we have something to work on.
Auroville is a place where this new way of living is being worked out. It is a center for accelerated evolution, where humanity must begin to change the world through the power of the inner spirit.
If we could achieve unity here, if you like, in a microcosm of the world, what a fantastic example it will be to the outside world. But it is an immense challenge. It's not a thing that's going to happen overnight. We don't even know exactly how to get there. The only thing we're fully aware of is that change has to occur. And you can't change anybody else, but you can change yourself.
If humanity had taken, let's say, 50,000 volunteers, telling them, look, you want to experiment communism, you are all volunteers, you all believe in it, start a place and try it. I think the world would have made a tremendous economy, because they will have realized what worked and what didn't work, what should never have been tried. You understand? So I think it is very important to have an experiment, and some people want to be part in the experiment.
There are experiments in environment and ecology. There are experiments in community living. There are experiments in, I guess a university, which is aiming at the highest thought, is an experiment in touching that as a collectivity. But all of this is not enough. Finally, the core pursuit of Auroville is to create that brotherhood, that sense of oneness in embodiment.
When I got here, I couldn't even imagine that we could be here for the coming of a new consciousness. And that, I used to say, give me a break if people started talking to me about that. Gee. But now, looking at the world, I mean, looking at this rain in March, the global warming, the climate change, the other ecological crises that we're facing, the crises in all the politics, the international politics and all that, I don't see that that is outlandish at all, unless our consciousness switches into one where we see the unity first and experience the delight in the diversity second only. Are we going to make it? And I think we're going to make it.
So there is the need and a will to do it, whatever are the difficulties. And you see, the question is not so much to succeed, but to create the path.
I think we are moving towards, right now, towards again an intensification in the individual. 40 years, I think a new thing has happened with the matrimondia coming into place. A new pulse is being generated, radiating out. People are being called back to what they came for and letting some of these externalities slip away.
You know, when I came here the first time in '73, there was nothing at all here, and everything looked totally impossible, and I don't know how we could have realized what has been realized here. It is only because there was a power behind that we could have done this. So the only thing that we can do is what the Charter says, be the willing servitor of the divine consciousness. I believe that the divine itself is doing Auroville. And more than ever, I believe in the future of Auroville, because I know it doesn't depend on us. Absolutely not. Otherwise, I would tell you, forget it. Definitely, I would tell you, forget it.
Now, what would Mother say about it? I would wish that she would say that we are not good enough. We certainly are not. We could have done better. But I myself am dissatisfied with what we've done so far. We wouldn't be able to do this thing, which is as large as human life, if we were satisfied very easily.
See, that's the trick Mother plays on everybody. She throws up these wonderful ideals. Yes, a society without money, no laws, and everyone will develop it as we go along. But when it comes to doing that, you begin to realize, at least I began to realize, but it took years, that there's no way to do that unless we move into a consciousness which is unity first.
You see, we are so much in the habit of looking at the surfaces of things. But Sri Aurobindo and Mother asked us to develop a deeper kind of seeing. And Sri Aurobindo has written beautifully, he says, even an initially spiritualized society would see all the members and aspects of that society as souls. Then I see not only Auroville actually, but everybody who's on earth at the moment is absolutely a heroic being. So there's an amazing collection of heroes who have accepted to be here and to be stupid Aurovillians and to stumble around and fight with each other and fight with everything. And through them, somehow, magically, by grace, some wonderful development is going on, some amazing blossoming is happening. I know that Mother would not be satisfied with the way things are. None of us can be satisfied with the way things are. But she might be satisfied with the sacrifice that is offered. Maybe.
You know, actually, if everybody's life, whatever it is, could be the manifestations, the expression of the bigger picture, that's victory.